Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am going to be doing a very fast set of batch cards, and this is where we are able to layer up our stamps. We have to do no masking, and there's kind of a trick that I always use when I want to do this. So for stamping today, I'm going to be using these three VersaFine Clair options. There is Cheerful, the yellow, Summertime is the orange, and Tulip Red is the red, obviously. I am using a Pigment ink to do my stamping today because when I'm not using a stamping platform, Pigment ink, these VersaFine Clair inks stamp beautifully every single time. This is the stamp set that I'm going to be using today, but you can also do this with flowers or any kind of bursts or lots of different things. So have a look in your stash for the stamps that you could use and try them out. I am making 5 cards today, and this is speedy. So we are going to go through this. I am starting off with the yellow ink. Now, I don't have time to do masking. I don't have time to kind of be dawdling around today. This is where I needed a set of 5 cards. So we need to be a little bit strategic, and I'm going to stamp my lightest colour first. So I have chosen to do this really nice big burst in the yellow, and I'm going up in the top left hand corner. I am going pretty much in the same place. But the best thing about this whole card design is that it really doesn't matter. It's very flexible. So if you go through your stash and find some nice outline flowers or some bold flowers or some squiggles or some bursts like this, there are lots of different options. Now I have done all of my yellow stamping. I'm moving on to the orange, and I have a slightly smaller burst now. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually going to go orange burst up the top, and then because red's a darker color, I'm going to dip it into the red and then stamp down the bottom, and then I am going to stamp off on that piece of scrap paper there, and that way I'm not going to have too much contamination between ink pads. They are really close colors, so even if I were to get a little bit on my ink pad, then I know that I could kind of just give it a little wipe on a scrap piece of paper and it would be fine again. But there is no contamination doing it this way. I'm stamping in the orange here, then I stamp off, put it in the red ink, stamp down here, and then I stamp off again in that little spot just to kind of get that excess ink off. And then this way, we are zooming through this card design so fast. These cards were honestly, I think this whole thing, before I even edited this video, took, I think maybe it was less than 20 minutes anyway, unedited. So I have edited it down to be about 8 minutes, and of course I have cut out things and sped up a couple of little bits, but this is not too far from real time. I think this is 1.25, so it is pretty much exactly how this went. You're seeing exactly how I was stamping everything. I am taking the smaller of the bursts, and I'm stamping it kind of on top of that red one. Now this is the golden part, because you can layer these stamps on top of each other, making sure that we go from light to the darker colors, and it still doesn't look like mud, and it still doesn't look like a hot mess, like we've kind of stamped everything and it all ended up on top of each other accidentally. It all looks really cohesive, and I love the way that these cards turned out. So this is a really good stamp set for those kind of generic cards that you could use for any occasion and pop any sentiments on it today. And the Pigment ink is really good for stamping with the acrylic blocks because it gives such good results. Now at this point, I'm not wanting to muck this up, so I have my stamping platform out. I have all the birthday stamp sets from Concord and 9th, and you guys have seen this in lots and lots of videos. Happy birthday cards are the ones that I make most often, and so I did invest in this stamp set, and it has a whole lot of happy birthdays. I picked out the really tall, bold happy and then kind of a scripty birthday, but honestly it didn't fit together nicely. It created too much distance between the happy and the birthday with those kind of loopy letters, so I went for the nice plain birthday, and I'm really happy with that decision. It makes everything nice and neat, and I have a sticky grid mat in my stamping platform here. I will link down below to everything that I have used in this video, all of the tools, all of the inks and things. But I'm pretty sure this is one of those kind of cards that you are able to create using things from your stash if you have been card making for any length of time. And but I will do my best to leave links. Sometimes things have been discontinued, but it's still really good to use them, and I think it's still important to use them in our crafting, even though they've been discontinued. And I know that can be a little bit frustrating if you're trying to source something or you see something that you really like the look of, but I always do my best. But it's so important to make the most of the tools and the stamp sets and the dies and things that we invest in. So That's basically the theme of my whole channel here on YouTube. I absolutely do buy new things. Don't get me wrong. I just choose to invest really wisely. And there's usually a whole lot of things that I think about before I go ahead and purchase something. Now, I have stamped the happy birthday in the VersaFine Onyx black ink, so it is standing out on top of all of that stamping that we did in the background. So I've gone for the darkest of colours, which is going to be the sentiment, and these could definitely be one layer cards. You could almost leave them here, and I almost kind of do that, but I just add a little couple more details that are going to make these cards. I did trim all of the card fronts down to be 4 by 5 1/4 inches. Then these are all going on to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card bases. I didn't want to pop these up on foam, but you could definitely do that if you wanted to give it a bit more dimension. These are my gems here. This is almost my whole gem collection. And if you don't have these kind of gems, then anything is going to work here. You could pop on some sequins. They would be nice and flat as well if you were mailing these. You could pop on some Colour Pops or some Nuvo Drops. They're pretty much the same thing, just different companies. And there's a whole lot of options that you could use here if you wanted to, but I'm going to go with some of these little flat back gems today. And again, using a really strong glue is important when I'm popping on gems. So in this little bottle is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's my preferred glue that I use for pretty much everything. And I have a little wax pencil here. This is very cheap and cheerful, but it picks these gems up beautifully and releases them nicely when they are popped onto that those little dots of glue that I have there. And as I said, this is just kind of finishing off the card. You could also use like some Wink of Stella or a little bit of glitter pen if you wanted to add some shimmer or sparkle to the bursts, or you could add a center to all of the bursts. I am just going very, very plain and simple, adding a few little gems all around. I took out some red ones, some orange ones, and some yellows, and then popping them wherever I feel like I should. In general, I tend to have odd numbers of grouping, so even though I've kind of got 2 up there, I like to have 5 little spaces or 3 little spaces around the card, and that is where I pop the gems. These cards are nearly all finished, and if you were inspired by these cards, or this kind of gave you some good inspiration to create something similar, then I would love to see your takes or your versions on these cards, and the best place to do that is over on our Facebook group. That way you can post a photo, and we have the most amazing supportive group. It is growing so fast, but there is such an amazing feeling of support over there, and that's really important to me in our group. So I will leave a link to that down in the description box below. But already, this was a really quick video. These cards are all finished up. We are just finishing the last couple of gems, and this was a super speedy process. I loved making these cards. I love how the outcome of them. I love how they look. It was so easy, so simple to do all of that stamping without doing any masking at all. And now we have a set of 5 cards that are ready to go in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!